Surely what the Americans have done by war, the Australian people could bring about in peace.
The road to Australian Federation began here. In this very room 130 years ago, Sir Henry Parkes offered his vision for a united Australian nation in what is known as the Tenterfield Oration. Also on display in what is now the Tenterfield Museum is a very different snippet of Australian history.
In the 1800s, Tenterfield was just like the hub of the universe. You know, it started, obviously with Henry Parkes' oration in 1889, but the things that happened in this town just blow me away.
Here is the earliest known version of the Australian flag and the personal possessions of the controversial legendary soldier Breaker Morant. These priceless historical artefacts are lucky to have survived.
It was found, and which I think is really important, then to be authenticated. That was the main thing, especially with the flag, and especially with the handwriting that's on that flag.
And to think we were so close to losing it all.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The historical treasures were discovered several years ago in the local rubbish tip.
The bag was choco, 90% of it was a rat's nest, damp, smelly, stinky paperwork.
730 was there 2 years ago when the man who made the incredible discovery showed the collection to a military arms valuer.
Taking into mind, we had no idea what this is. I thought I'd just caught a good bag full of bloody military stuff.
The sharp-eyed fossicker declined to be interviewed and asked only to be identified as Mr. Collector. He donated many of the items to the Tenterfield Museum, including the identity tag that Breaker Morant wore when he was executed in 1902.
This one is stamped Edwin Henry Morant, and the bullet has just gone through the bottom of it, which would have been over his heart when he said, "Shoot straight, you bastards, don't mess this up."
Shoot straight, you bastards! Don't make a mess of it!
What was the reaction here when this amazing discovery in the Tenterfield tip?
Oh, absolutely. People were just astounded that those items, obviously contacted with connection to Breaker Morant, that J.F. Thomas had brought them back with him.
Major James Thomas was the military lawyer appointed to defend Breaker Morant and Peter Hancock after they were accused of killing civilians during the Boer War.
Hold them up as murderers for obeying orders.
A role played by Jack Thompson in the 1980 movie. After losing the trial, Major Thomas returned to this home on the outskirts of Tenterfield, a broken man. What sort of reputation did he have here?
He was highly thought of. So he was, and helped a lot of community groups out in his time. And as Tenterfield is good about community, he was a good community man. But to repeat myself, he did die a sad and lonely death.
The evidence that I've looked at indicates that he suffered terrible post-traumatic stress, lost his practice, lost his businesses, lost his homes, his properties, and died in 1942 alone, a pauper, bankrupt, and died from malnutrition.
His house, now derelict, is thought to be one of several properties where he kept the historical treasures. How this collection ended up in the local tip 75 years later remains a mystery.
I suspect, it's only a guess, that some of those properties were raided, and all these years later, someone has just cleaned out the garden shed or the carport, and simply thrown the material that was found in a Hessian bag down to the tip, without realising their significance.
And his name's underneath there.
After Major Thomas's death, Breaker Morant became a popular, if controversial, symbol of the emerging Australian identity. His defenders saw him as a scapegoat, unfairly vilified for following the orders of his British commanders.
We have democratic principles, processes, whether it's 117 years ago or today, and those principles are worth standing up for. I can assure you these men were not tried and sentenced according to law.
James Uncles helped organise the restoration of the early Australian flag found in the rubbish tip collection and is leading a campaign to pardon Morant and 2 others executed by a firing squad.
I've been pushing for that end on behalf of the descendants. They are insisting that this government provide an independent inquiry, independent of government.
The Tenterfield Council is backing the cause, supporting a local hero with a sad but no longer forgotten past.
In the time that J.F. Thomas got to defend him, the whole thing was a setup, you know, and I feel for him, you know, that he never got over it, and obviously had a mental breakdown which affected the rest of his life and in this town, and just feel that, you know, the community should be supportive. It's a great story and great history, and even that Australia were involved over there in such a war. But I mean, we can't fix the history, but we can fix up the future.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen.